Do you know what you're talking about? Is this Andrew Neil's most brutal interview ever? BBC host Andrew Neil was furious at Mr. Hands as the Conservative minister struggled to clarify the Tories' position over the single market and customs union during the transitional period. The Brexit clash came after a shocker report claimed the European Union were attempting to use the transitional period to force the UK to obey regulations or face a suspension of certain benefits. Tariffs could be imposed on UK goods and planes could be grounded as a result of a suspension of aviation rights if the regulations were not followed. Neil asked the Conservative MP to comment on the document before Mr. Hands repeatedly sidestepped the question. Neil said, "I ask again, what is our negotiating position? Are we prepared to negotiate any kind of sanctions or not?" Mr. Hands replied, "Look, we are going to have to see how we enter this negotiation. What I am saying to you, is a lot of what is published there is illogical. Why would the EU want to ground flights when presumably half of the passengers are coming from the European Union?" Neil was not pleased with the response and claimed Mr. Hands was incapable of setting out the government's position for the British people. The Daily Politics presenter turned on the Labour Shadow Rail Minister, Rachel Maskell, to see the opposition's position on whether they would negotiate possible sanctions from the EU if Britain did not follow terms set out in the transitional period. The Labour MP claimed the party would not even be in this stage of the negotiations because they have clearly set out what they want in the transitional period. Neil said, "I'm sorry, no matter what your relationship with the EU, you need transitional arrangements. And you need a dispute mechanism if someone is found in breach." The Labour minister said that there would have to be sanctions on both sides before the BBC host turned his attention back onto the Conservative MP over whether Britain would stay in the single market and customs union during the transitional period. He asked, "It is a matter for us to find out what the government's position is going into the negotiations, and at this late stage, you cannot even tell me that." Mr. Hands said that it was up to the negotiation, which had not yet started. Neil raged, "It can't start till you make up your mind with what you want. What is the point in negotiating if you can't make up your mind?" Mr. Hands said the government want the same terms the UK currently has now with the EU during the implementation period, so businesses only have to adapt once. Neil was furious with the lack of clarity from the Tory MP. He asked, "Do you know what you're talking about? Do you have any idea what you're talking about? This is your field and you can't give a simple answer to a simple question." The host asked the Labour Party minister about whether the party would remain in any of the EU's institutions after the transitional period. Ms. Maskell said the party had taken nothing off the table, which infuriated the host even more. The host finished the segment by expressing his disappointment towards both the Labour and Conservative politicians. "Even by our standards that was remarkably unproductive," Neil said.